Hi, and welcome to a demonstration of the latest advancements in CluedInsight AI capabilities. Today we'll be walking through our intelligent tools, including AI agents, Copilot, and the Azure OpenAI Enricher. I'll illustrate how you can leverage each of these components to simplify your data interactions on the CluedIn platform. Let's begin by taking a look at some of the data that I've already loaded into my instance. So if I jump over to Ingestion, over to Files, we can see that I've already loaded up 4 files here, some transactional data, some data about games, some client data, and books. Let's go through and have a quick look at these as we'll be using them throughout the demo. The transaction CSV here, obviously transactional data based on its name, but you wouldn't really be able to tell that from the column names. They're mostly codes. This one here would appear to be a currency, which would suggest this is the actual currency value. But other than that, I'm not really too sure what the rest of these are, and we'll use AI to help us with that later. Okay, we've got games, no English. In this CSV, I've stripped out the English title and synopsis, leaving only the Japanese title, the console, and the release year. We will use AI to populate the missing fields and do some translations for us. Client data with quality issues. Let's have a quick look at this one. This is sort of standard customer data. We can see that the phone numbers are not standardized. We've got dashes, brackets, even some dots here. We've got a city column where we can see that we've got abbreviations, aliases, all sorts of different things here, even SYD, which is not an official acronym for Sydney. And we've got a country column as well, which also contains aliases. Here we have United States, but it's written in Spanish. So we've got different languages, different character sets, all sorts of different things happening here in this data set. There are other errors as well, and we will use AI to find those later. And the last file that I've uploaded is some book data. We've got the title of the book, the author, and the publication, and this data set includes duplicates by pseudonyms. So we can see that Stephen King is here, and he will also be here as his pseudonym, as well as other authors that we will use AI to find. Now, before we get into using the AI, we'll have to turn it on in the instance. I have already turned mine on, and I'll show you how to turn it on in your instance. So if you go over to Administration Feature Flags, there's an AI Agents feature toggle here. You just click that to turn it on. When you turn it on, it'll also turn this artificial intelligence section on for you, as indicated by the dependency tooltip here. We also have AI Copilot, which I have already turned on and configured. So after you've turned these on, for the Copilot, head over to Azure Integration, Copilot, and enter the data here. You can find detailed guides in our documentation on where to get these values. Also, when you turn on AI Agents, you'll see this artificial intelligence section appear in the administration section, where you can come and configure a platform. You should out the box already have CluedIn, which is self-hosted LLMs for small tasks like rules or stripping data. You then need to create a deployment to link to one of the platforms. We can see here that I have locally Qwen, Llama, Phi, but I also have configured ChatGPT or 3.5 Turbo on Azure, as well as GPT-4 and 4.0 Mini. And lastly, you must configure an endpoint, which is a one-to-one mapping to the models that we just saw before. They allow you to specify things like throttling and just add a central point of logging. Once you've configured that, you can then head over and start to use the AI that you've configured. In this demo, I'm going to start with the AI agents. So if I head over here, you'll see out the box you already have 2 agents or 2 personas, the data steward and the data architect. If I drill down into my data steward, I can see that he's already got 2 jobs configured, one to fix data quality issues, and one to look for duplicates. And these are really just suggestions on tasks that you may have your AI data steward complete. Now we're going to start with looking for duplicates in that book data set that I was just talking about before. So when you click on this look for duplicates template, we can see that you've got the prompt editor here in the central part of the screen with a bit of a template saying find duplicates in, and I have to drag and drop the data set that I would like it to look in. To do that, I need to click here to create the data set. Give it any name that I want, but I'll call it books so it makes sense. I'll define a query on how to get this data. It could be a subset of data. In this case, I will just do all the books that I have. So I will turn sampling off, send all the data, and then we can use CluedIn standard rule builder to choose the data that we want. So here I'm choosing where the business domain equals books. That'll create that data set. And then I can drag that over into my little designer here. The skill that will be run for this job will be to create duplication projects, which makes sense. That's what we're after. And once you've provided all that information and dragged it in, you should be able to hit the Test Now button. Okay, after a few seconds, you should get the results panel. And we can see here that it actually hasn't found any results. So I'm just going to go ahead and close that and then come down to some advanced settings for my job. We can see that it's trying to use GPT-4 32K, which I would expect to have good results, but I'm actually going to try 4.0 mini. I'll close that and then I'll hit Test Now again. All right, so 4.0 mini has definitely returned better results. Well, 4K didn't return any. And we can see here duplicate titles with different authors is the description, and it's highlighted a few of these books here. So let's close that and enable this job now that we're happy with it, and hit run. Okay, after a few seconds with my data, the job is completed, but depending on the amount of data that you want to run it over, it could take minutes, could take hours, could take even longer, depending on what you have and the speed of the model that you're going to run your data through. Anyway, now that that is run, I should be able to jump over to my deduplication section in CluedIn, and I can see that a deduplication project has been created. It has the same name as the job that made it. And if I click on here and head over to matches, we can see those same items that we got when I pushed the test connection button. Let's have a quick look at these and see whether they make sense and whether they were good duplicates. Let's look at this murder in Mesopotamia. Yeah, it looks like it is an actual duplicate. We can see that one of our entries had Hercule Poirot as the author, and the other is Agatha Christie. Which is definitely valid, Hercule Poirot being a character in the book by Agatha Christie. So this is something that you would just never be able to do with classic deduplication based on string distance functions or scores or weightings. Yes, the titles are the same. That doesn't need to be the case. But if you merged on title, you would overmerge a lot. You definitely need to use the LLM's general knowledge to understand that these two authors are related. So that was pretty quick and pretty easy to do. And if we jump back over, I'll just highlight that I didn't really put or tweak anything in the look for duplicates. I could add a lot more here. I could say use pseudonyms, don't use pseudonyms, ignore the publish date perhaps. Maybe the book was reauthored or re-released at another date. But with such a simple prompt, even the AI was able to locate a few duplicates in our set, which is pretty amazing. All right, so now we've had a quick look at how we look for duplicates. Let's go back and see what else we can do with AI agents. Go back into the data steward. All right, so there's another suggestion here, another template to fix data quality issues. So let's have a look at this one. We can see very similar to the deduplication. It comes with a very small template, fix data issues insert here. And the fixed data quality issues is already ticked. Now, as I mentioned when looking at my data sets, my client data was not very good, had lots of data quality issues in it. So let's, again, define a data set, turn sampling off because I would like this to run on all the data, and then choose the filter, which for me would be business domain equals client. So we'll create that. I'll drag the client's data onto the placeholder there. And the prompt is very simple. Fix data quality issues in the client. All right, so let's click test now and see what happens. Okay, it's come up with no results again. Let's just close this guy down. Jump over and, yep, it's 4K again. That didn't return any data for me. Perhaps it's having an issue at the moment. Let's jump over to 4.0 mini. It'll be faster and normally gives very similar results. Okay, it has definitely come back with quite a lot of suggestions of things to do. Correcting the city name from New York to New York, US of A to United States. These seem pretty good. Melbs to Melbourne. I couldn't really comment on the Japanese ones. Let's just assume that they're correct for now. But Merca to USA. These are all very valid suggestions that it wants to do. We can even see some, common things like Italy here. So yeah, this looks very good. So let's close that down. And as per the other one, let's turn it on, and then I'll click run now. Okay, so now that's completed, I'll jump over to the results tab, and we can see that it actually, in total, suggests 41 data fixes for my data. I can click on the view all here, and brings up a results tab where I can approve or reject the individual changes. I get a description that we saw in the preview panel before, and yeah, it would have also sent a notification out to the notification bus. So if you have that configured to go to Teams or email, you would have been notified that there is data here for you to look at and approve or reject appropriately. So let's take this one, for example, correct city naming abbreviation Sydney to Sydney. And I will just bring up another tab here, and we'll find that entity before we accept that change. So SYD, we'll see, Peter Jones, properties, sure. All right, well, actually the country was Oz and the city is SYD. So Peter Jones very much likes to write in abbreviations. So if we jump back over to the suggestions here and find that Sydney, let's approve that guy. Give it a few seconds and then jump back over to Peter Jones and refresh my page. Okay, we can see that the city has been updated to Sydney as expected, given that I approved it. And if I jump over to the topology, we can see that I manually added it. So 2 minutes ago, the agent ran, and I have approved that one there. So it's merged into the final record. So that's how simple it is to approve data corrections as suggested by an AI agent. There are other ways. We can use an AI enricher, and I'll show that a little bit later. But you can definitely use an agent for this. Okay, let's go back and have a look at that third and final template, which was under the data architect. A template to create some rules. So let's have a look at this one. Okay, the template is suggest data quality rules for drag and drop data here. All right, so let's create a data set. I'll use the client data set again. Query. In this case, I'll just sample it for creating the rules. I don't need to enumerate over all of the data. In fact, the schema is normally enough. But let's have a look at the first 100 rows anyway. Set up the filter as before, business domain equals, and choose my client, create. and then drag and drop that onto the Surface Designer. All right, let's click test now and see what happens. Okay, no results found, same as the other two. Let's jump over to settings, change the endpoint. Just to be different this time, I'm going to use 3.5 Turbo. Close that down, hit test. Okay, 3.5 Turbo is very quick, as the name suggests. It is returned that we should probably validate the entity ID as a valid UUID, validate the email address, validate date order, all very good suggestions. Validate that the total spent is a numeric with 2 decimal places, which makes sense for an amount. And I can click on one of these and have a detailed look at what we want to do, or what the AI wants to do. Let's have a look at this validate email, and we can see that it's built the filter based pretty much off what I said the data was. So where the business domain equals client and the vocabulary client email does not match this pattern here, and it's created a sort of wild regex, which I will trust is correct for an email. It seems to be. It has an at, has to have a dot. It looks pretty good. So when it does not match this pattern, it's going to run this action here, and this action is going to add the tag invalid email format. Sounds reasonable. So let's close that. Let's close that. Let's enable this AI agent and run now. Now, as that's running in the background, and something that I probably should have mentioned earlier, these AI agents will continue to run in the background on a schedule. So once a day, or you can configure it to be higher or lower frequency depending on your data requirements. So I'm pushing run now just so it runs immediately. But as data comes into the system, it will be picked up on a schedule and the same prompts be applied. Okay, that ran very quickly while I was chatting. So let's jump over to the rule builder and have a quick look at the golden record rules. Okay, it didn't create a golden record rule. Let's have a look then at the data part rule. Hasn't created that either. Ah, of course, it hasn't created any of those because I need to approve it. It's not just going to go and create them straight away. So let's go back to my create rules, over to the results tab. And yes, we can see that there are 6 pending rules needing my authorization to be created. Let's create the valid email one that we saw before. I think that sounds quite reasonable. In addition to the client email format validation, let's turn on another one. Let's enable the phone number validation, because we did see that there was invalid phone numbers when we had a quick look at the data set before. So let's do that. Hit close, and then jump over to the rule builder. Golden record rules. All right, we can see that the 2 rules that I approved have been created. Let's jump over to the validate phone number rule and let's turn it on. Once we've turned it on, we can hit reprocess. Okay, it's already processed about, oh, there we go, it's completed. Let's search. Go down to filters, and I'm going to, yes, find 11 records with invalid phone numbers. So here we go. All of these guys have phone numbers that do not match that regex. We can see here the tag has been added. So we've added rules with AI, we've deduplicated data with AI, we've fixed data quality issue with AI agents, I should say. That's not the only AI that's in CluedIn. As I mentioned before, there we have the Copilot down here, where you can ask it very general questions. A good place to start is the See More prompts, where you can get a sort of quick guide on sort of all the functions that it can do. Some of these are context specific, but the Copilot will lead you through that if you need to use them. But let's jump over to that data set that really didn't make a lot of sense and see if the Copilot can help us make sense of that data set. That was transactions. Bring up my transactions, and I'll bring up my Copilot. And as you can see, it's already suggesting some actions given that I'm on this page already. So let's just describe this data set and see what it's got to say. All right, fetching dataset description. Okay, it's thinking. All right. This dataset contains financial transaction data with columns such as company code, fiscal year, document number, item number, posting key, ledger account, amount, currency, and others. It seems to be related to accounting or financial activities. So it could have got transactions from the name. However, these company codes in fiscal years, obviously the AI understands what these are. They are well known in SAP, and the AI knows them. So possible validation checks include verifying the code, adding ranges, so it's even making suggestions on things that I should do for validation, creating rules, which I could use the AI to create, or I could do myself. It's even gone further and said there is no sensitive data in the columns, but a potential foreign key could exist. So it's done quite a good job of analyzing this table. It didn't make a lot of sense to me, and enables me to continue with the mapping manually. Now I understand what that data is. As we saw before, there was a lot of other options that the Copilot could help me with down here in the C example prompts, but we'll make another video on all of those and how to use them. I just thought I'd show the suggest data, the describe this data set, because it's kind of relevant to a lot of the other activities we were using AI agents for. Now, as a rule of thumb, I like to think of AI agents as jobs that operate on subsets of data, tables and rows, multiple rows. If you're writing if you want to use AI just to operate on a single row, you can definitely do that with the AI agent, and I have done that just before with cleaning the data. But you can use an AI enricher for that as well. AI enrichers trigger immediately once the data comes in. So you do get a little bit more responsive feedback, and they're audited in a different way. We won't get down into the technicalities of that, but it's another option that's available to you. So I've already installed the AI enricher into my environment. So if I head over to preparation and enrich and add enricher, I can see that I have the Azure OpenAI enricher here, amongst others, but this is the one I'll be demonstrating now. So it's asking me for the deployment name. What model would you like to use in Azure OpenAI? That must align with whatever you've deployed. I have a ChatGPT 35 Turbo here. My accepted entity types, I'm going to give it games, and then the prompt. So if you remember, we had Japanese names in the games, but no English names. So let's use the AI to try and provide those missing bits of information. So please translate vocabulary, computer game. Actually, no, it was just called game, not computer game. Game.Japanese title to English, and store it in output vocabulary game.English title. Also populate output vocabulary game.synopsis. Okay. Now let's just double check I don't have any spelling mistakes in the placeholders. The AI would be very tolerant with it anywhere else, but we do need to exactly match our columns in the database. I had a wrong bracket there. So please translate vocabulary game.Japanese title to English and store it in vocabulary game English title. Yep, that looks good to me. I can add additional filters here. Maybe I only want to look at a subset of my games. Maybe I only want to enrich games that don't have an English title already. So I could stack them up, but I'm not going to worry about that for now. Let's just test my connection. It all looks good. And I'll hit add. All right, so that's configured my enricher. If I decide that I want to tweak my prompt, I can do that at any time later. If I want to give it a better name, let's do that. Let's call it AI enricher. Or maybe GPT-35, because that's what it was. Okay, I'll hit save on that. And I will just wait a few seconds for the enricher to start processing the data. Now, depending on your data, again, this could take quite a while, depending on what model you use as well. whether it's local, whether it's in the cloud. All these things affect the speed at which this can run. But it should have enriched some by now, so I'm just going to search for star. Let's add a filter here. The business domain, let's go look at my games. And as we can see, we've got Japanese names, but let's just click on one of these and see if any data has come in yet. Yes, it has. English title is virtual racing. Now, I have no idea whether that's actually correct. I don't read Japanese, but I'm pretty sure if we search for the games in English now, I search for Tekken, it's brought this up. I can see a number 3 there. If I jump over to the properties, something 3, Tekken 3. It does look like it worked correctly. So that is very easy way to translate and add missing bits of information to your data. If I jump over to the topology page, we should be able to see the data parts that have come in, and we can see here with the logo as well that it came from our Azure OpenAI enricher. And if I click on that particular data part, we can see that Azure OpenAI that I labeled GPT-3.5 AI enricher provided the English title of Tekken 3 for this particular title. If we jump over to properties, I can see that there isn't a synopsis for this one, which is interesting. Let's just search for another game and see if it did provide it for that particular game. Let's go to games, just pick another one at random, over to properties. Yes, so Bare Knuckle 2 has been translated from here, The Deadly Battle, and we can see that the AI has provided a nice synopsis of the game there for us, which is cool. All right, so we've covered Copilot very briefly, Azure OpenAI very briefly. We've done a little bit more into the Azure AI agents, which can be Azure on-prem. We've just sort of scratched the surface on some of the things that this AI can do. So hopefully this demonstration has given you a good understanding of how AI can assist you, and definitely encourage you to play and experiment in your own environment and see if this is applicable to your use cases. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the CluedIn team. And yeah, thanks for watching.